Are you ready to live boldly, full out, and on your terms? It's time to wake up, overcome your fears, and embrace uncertainty. Access your power and claim your dreams. It's time for Tuck Talk with Tuck Self, the Rebel Belle. Join us now for inspiring conversation and bold self-expression. Now here is your host, the Rebelicious Tuck Self.
So today, I'd like to talk to you about listening, which in itself is an oxymoron. How do you talk about listening, right? So what is the definition of listening? The dictionary defines listening as, and I quote, giving attention with the ear, to attend closely for the purpose of hearing. That's the dictionary. Now, according to my mentor of 20 years, the illustrious Dr. McCall, she has this to say. Listening is the single most important component in communication that you and I do. And yet, listening is the least practiced component in communication. The rarest component in communication is empowered, mindful listening. You know, Dr. McCall defines empowered mindful listening as the ability to listen with all four quadrants of oneself. And those four quadrants are the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual or intuitive quadrant. Imagine the possibilities, she says, when one is present and communicating with all four quadrants in operation in all relationships, work, family, and in every area of one's life. I assert that the practice of empowered mindful listening is becoming the next evolutionary leap for mankind. I gotta go, whew! I love this so much, you all, so much that Dr. McCall and I wrote a book together that was entitled, I Know You Hear Me, Are You Listening? I was inspired to work with Dr. C on this book for many reasons. There's a short version and then there's a longer version. The short answer is this. Next to breathing, listening is the single most important thing that any of us do, and yet most people listen. At 25% capacity, imagine the possibility if in all of your relationships, work and family, areas of your life, you can improve your ability to really listen by as little as 10%, especially today, you all, especially today. Now, the long answer actually requires you getting to know Dr. McCall and her life's work, where she's dedicated herself to the powers of listening and being heard. You know, as a social worker in the 60s, Dr. McCall worked with the inmates on death row at San Quentin, and these inmates shared with her that at the moment of their demise, of the victims, they felt heard. At that moment, at the demise of their victims, they were finally listened to and heard. You know, this one statement, this concept and experience inspired Dr. McCall, along with a couple of other experiences, to commit her life's work to the healing powers and the possibilities of listening. And then when people are not heard, you all, they hold on to toxins. They hold tension in their bodies that ultimately compromise their health, their well-being, and their lives. And that when people are heard, when they are listened to, they release toxins and tension from their body, and they remain healthy and they thrive in their lives. That is powerful. You know, we're living in a time of great change, I believe, and we are experiencing a huge paradigm shift in how we're interacting with one another, how we communicate with one another, specifically with the powerful and innovative changes in technologies over these past 100 years. You know, in my world, many people today believe that we are the technology that we have been looking for. So the possibilities for how we live our lives, how we relate to one another, listen and communicate with one another, they're endless, you all. We no longer see things as separate. We no longer are analyzing things necessarily with our logical brains. We are experiencing ourselves as part of a greater whole of nature, and we're more synthesized in how we view our world, and we're drawing on our intuition, we're drawing on our senses. And more in making decisions, we're using those senses as opposed to our rational way of thinking. You know, our world has been and is dominated by sight. We see everything. Our realities are and have been based on the images we see and literally, y'all, how we perceive and see the world. You know, there is a beautiful book called The World of Sound, written by Johann Ernst Berendt. I think I mutilated his name. The book, though. Here's what he has to say. Perk up your ears. Human beings, with their disproportionate emphasis on seeing, have brought on the excess of rationality, of analysis, of abstraction, whose breakdown we are now witnessing. You know, no longer do we see the world. We see its images. Living almost exclusively through the eyes has led us to almost not living at all. You know, many outstanding scholars, scientists, psychologists, philosophers, and writers, he says, have described and circumscribed the new consciousness, what's called the new consciousness. But one aspect of this new consciousness that has not been pointed out is this, and he says, the new consciousness will be the consciousness of hearing people. No longer will our eyes have precedence over our ears. The audible, the sound, will be more important than the visible. The new man, he says, will be a listening man, or will never be at all. He will be able to perceive sounds in the way that we cannot even imagine today. So when I hear this, I'm filled with possibility because I know the power of listening. I know and have the experience of being heard. And I love this concept of the new human. I love that we're on the vanguard of great change, you all, and that each of us have a role in this great change. And I'm excited to be a listening woman. I ain't a listening man. I'm gobsmacked by it, actually. You know, at this pivotal time in our history, we're being asked, y'all, to embrace an unknown of confusion, chaos, and fear. But we're also being gifted with new possibilities. Possibilities for peace, finding common ground, and for navigating chaos and conflict, one empowered, mindful, listening conversation at a time. See what I did there? You know, through the 9 tools of empowered mindful listening, you are offered a practice and a way of being that brings the experience to yourself and others, of communicating effectively and being heard. Empowered mindful listening offers an evolutionary leap for mankind. So I'll close today's podcast with a quote from Dr. McCall, and she says, listening is a gift. It is the nucleus of communication. Listening requires that you give up the right to interpret what's being said and that you remain present to what's being spoken. Listening requires that the speaker's commitments, concerns, and possibilities are heard. Listening provides affinity, wholeness, and well-being.